You've led me really nicely onto my next question, which is about, you were talking about, you had an assistant who spent a lot of time sitting in the room with you. Well, that's clearly not something we can do now. And I've been currently a mentor on the IVAS Academy scheme. And I did some I was working with this brilliant guy. And there were some days where he said, I'd just like to see what you do. So we did a Zoom share screen while I scored some scenes of casualty. And even just on the share screen, I did find myself feeling quite self-conscious. I mean, I chatted through what I was doing and he seemed very, very interested. So I think it was good, but obviously I was kind of a little bit aware of the time in a way that I probably wouldn't have been, because also I was really aware that he was sitting in front of a computer watching. Yeah. And I was kind of thinking, you can only do that for so many hours. If you're not really contributing, you will get quite tired quite quickly. Whereas if you're in a room, I think the energy would be slightly different. But with the pandemic, and we really don't know where that's going to go, how does that work? I mean, does somebody need to be in physical proximity, or can things be done remotely? I think we've seen lots can be done remotely. Yeah. That can work.
Absolutely. I think things can definitely be done remotely. And, for instance, like Hope Thal is here, and I might actually have her chime in on this. Right. Hope used to be my assistant, and now she's actually assistant with another team. And I think her entire, even before the pandemic, it was often a very remote process. But Hope, do you want to talk a bit about your life as, one of the junior members of the team you're on now? And also with me, you were mostly remote when you were my assistant, come to think of it.
Yeah. I work with a composer named Alex Garingas now as an assistant, and all remote since the pandemic. I worked in person sometimes, but oftentimes in person, and even with Catherine, most in-person stuff is like recording sessions. And they're not happening. So at least they're not happening in person. So most of my work has been remote. And a lot of times, like the copying work for sessions, even if they're being recorded remote, we're doing that all virtually. And I think like with Catherine and with the Alex that I work for, like having a shorthand of communication, of just like how he likes, just text me that or just email me that, like knowing when it's, how he likes to be communicated to about things, and finding that shorthand has made it really easy to be remote. What else do you want to know? I do a lot of
real quick, tasks that you're doing right now that you did for me remotely and that you're doing for Alex right now remotely as well.
Yeah, lots of stuff. So Alex's work is mostly animation. And so I create all the lead sheets for the studios to submit. So that's, he just sends me the audio to all that, and then I do the lead sheets for those. And
part of doing the lead sheets is also you have to do an audio analysis. You have to do a codal analysis of those songs, right?
Yeah. So he sends just an audio file, and then I have to do it all by ear, which is super crazy and challenging, but fun. Now it's fun. It wasn't fun at the beginning. And then I also take notes for spotting sessions. We do those all via Zoom. So we used to do those in person, and now we do them all on Zoom, which has been fairly smooth, I would say. Actually probably more productive than they used to be, just because everybody has more of a time frame that they want to be staring at a screen. And I do additional music for him. So from the spotting sessions we do, I get notes of what are my cues, and I do those and bounce my stems. And I create previews for the studio. Like when we're sending our previews in, I do those. I create those. The show I do additional music for is Trolls, and it's been around for 8 seasons now. So I do a lot of editing also for the music editing for the show, because we've had it for a while. But lots of times he's giving me cues, and it started really can you do a sting here, a sting there? So just really 1 second things he doesn't want to be bothered with anymore. But then they've gotten longer and longer as far as what I'm being given. So I know the palette of the show pretty well. And I also did his catalog, like Catherine was mentioning. When I first came on for him, it was like, we have 8 seasons of Trolls and like hundreds and hundreds of cues that need metadata and organizing so that we can edit them and all that. So I like did that whole catalog. So I've listened to literally every single cue from that show. So I'm pretty familiar, and I'm in the spotting session. So I'm like writing the notes and hearing the director explain what he wants.
Another great entryway for people to kind of get into additional music, like as we've said, having them really familiar with your catalog is one thing. Another great way is having them, you know, and this kind of like is somewhere in the land of additional music / arranging / music editing, is having them create tracks from your stems. So they're using the actual palette of the show. They're using a lot of your content. Maybe they add something on top, like maybe they create like one more stem, but having them build initially from your stems is a great way to kind of have them work within your palette and not stray too far from, you know, what you've already done. And, you know, music editing is also just another great way to have your assistant come in and help you out with it without it being too much like stress. Or additional music is a big thing, and it's something for an assistant to do after they've been with you for a while. Like, it's not an entry level thing. It's definitely an advanced aspect, I think. So